Hello, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we will bring you a romantic love story, so let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. The Grand Aurora Hotel sparkles like a precious gem in the heart of the city, its crystal chandeliers hanging from the banquet hall ceiling, casting light like stars fallen to earth. The clink of wine glasses mingles with hearty laughter and the gentle strains of live jazz from the band. Sharp black tuxedos and glamorous evening gowns glide past one another, exchanging calculated handshakes and polite smiles. This is Blake Corporation's annual gala, where the elite, partners, and senior staff gather to celebrate a mighty business empire. Yet amid the opulent atmosphere, one corner buzzes with extra life, where a group of young friends is throwing a birthday party, adding vibrancy to the already lively scene. Grace Carson, 24, stands tucked into a corner of the hall, clutching a glass of orange juice as if it's her last lifeline. Freshly graduated with a business administration degree, she's struggling to find a job, scraping by on savings and part-time shifts at a small cafe. The pale green dress borrowed from Lila, her best friend from college, is slightly loose at the shoulders, making Grace fidget with the hem, worried she looks out of place among the elegant crowd. Her round face and warm brown eyes radiate kindness, but now they flicker with unease. Grace doesn't belong in this world. She's only here because of Lila's insistence. "Your 24th birthday has to be epic, Em. Come with me, I've got it all covered." Grace embodies gentleness. She always smiles, even when her heart is heavy with worries about the future. Her clumsiness, spilling drinks or tripping over her dress, often makes her friends chuckle. Deeply empathetic, she'll listen to Lila vent about relationships for hours. But she's also self-conscious, convinced she's not talented or beautiful enough to stand out. Tonight, she just wants to go home, curl up under a blanket with a romantic movie and a mug of hot tea. But Lila, with her bouncy curls and mischievous grin, has other plans. "Come on, Em, just one drink." Lila slides a shimmering cocktail toward Grace, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "It's your birthday, live a little." The friends around them cheer, raising their glasses, their laughter filling the air. Grace, unaccustomed to alcohol, shakes her head vigorously, her loosely tied brown hair swaying. I can't handle it, Lila. Last time, one drink left me dizzy all day." But Lila's pleading eyes and the group's encouraging claps wear her down. She takes a tentative sip, the sweet fruitiness masking the alcohol's strength, easing her nerves. One drink becomes two, then three. Soon Grace's vision blurs. The jazz morphs into a strange hum, and her feet feel like they're walking on clouds. "Lila, I need a break," Grace mumbles, trying to stay upright but bumping into a middle-aged guest, nearly spilling his wine. She apologizes profusely, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, the borrowed high heels from Lila making her wobble even more. Lila laughs loudly, guiding her to a velvet-upholstered chair. "Relax, it's your birthday. Our group's room is upstairs. If you're tired, go rest there." Grace nods, her head spinning. She vaguely recalls Lila mentioning room 2301, or was it 3201? She's not sure. Swaying, she stumbles out of the banquet hall, leaning against the wall for balance, the flickering corridor lights intensifying her dizziness. The elevator takes her to the top floor, where a luxurious, red-carpeted hallway leads to the presidential suites. Grace doesn't notice the difference. To her, everything is a hazy blur of light and color. She pauses at a slightly ajar door and pushes it open. Soft light from a bedside lamp illuminates a king-size bed draped in white silk, looking more inviting than anything she's ever seen. Finally, "I can sleep," she mutters, collapsing onto the mattress, her dress fanning out like a wilted flower. She hugs a pillow, giggling and mumbling nonsense. "Lila, don't eat all the cake. It's my birthday. I want the chocolate part." Then she drifts into sleep, unaware she's in the room of Nathaniel Blake, the most powerful man in the building. Nathaniel Blake, 32, sits in an armchair by the window, a glass of whiskey glinting in his hand under the dim light. His black tuxedo is unbuttoned, tie loosened around his neck, yet he exudes a cold, sharp aura like a king on an invisible throne. As CEO of Blake Corporation, Nathaniel runs the business empire with an iron fist, his every decision capable of altering hundreds of lives. Tonight, he made a brief appearance at the gala to sign a multi-million-dollar deal with a Japanese partner, then retreated to his room to rest. He dislikes crowds, false smiles, and being disturbed. 5 years ago, Nathaniel wasn't so cold. He was a warm man with a radiant smile and an open heart. He had planned a perfect future with Vanessa, his fiancée, a lakeside home, world travels, and a small family. But days before their wedding, Vanessa left him for an older billionaire, shattering his heart and trust. That wound turned him into the Ice Emperor, a nickname whispered by employees. He locked away his emotions, leaving only his sharp business acumen, and no one dared approach him. The whiskey soothes the headaches from a long day of negotiations, but it doesn't ease the persistent loneliness. He stares out the window, his gaze empty, the twinkling city below feeling like a foreign world. A faint noise at the door startles him. Nathaniel stands, brows furrowed, his deep blue eyes flashing with irritation. He spots a stranger on his bed, her pale green dress splayed out, one high heel discarded on the carpet. "Who are you? Get out now," he says, his voice icy, cutting through the quiet room. But Grace, too drunk to hear, only mumbles more about cake and hugs the pillow tighter, a naive smile lingering on her lips. Nathaniel steps closer, intending to wake her, but pauses as the bedside lamp lights her face. Grace looks fragile, like a child, her brown hair mussed, cheeks flushed from alcohol, her lips moving as if telling a story only she knows. He sighs, his anger inexplicably fading. "What kind of trouble is this?" he mutters, rubbing his temple, a rare sense of confusion stirring. He tries calling the hotel staff, but it's too late at night, and he doesn't want a scene. Nathaniel watches Grace for a moment, his expression complex. Something about her innocence, her carelessness, stops him from being as harsh as usual. She murmurs in her sleep, "Boss, don't fire me. I'll do better." Nathaniel catches it, the corner of his mouth twitching into a rare smile he quickly hides. He pulls the silk blanket over her, his fingers brushing the edge carefully to avoid touching her. Then he grabs his jacket, stretches out on the sofa, and closes his eyes in a room that no longer feels as cold. Grace's steady breathing, like a strange melody, slips into his heart, though he's not ready to admit it. Sunlight slips through the curtains, casting faint golden streaks across the thick carpet of the presidential suite. Grace Carson blinks, her mind foggy as if stuffed with cotton. She mumbles, trying to piece together where she is. The faint scent of sandalwood mixed with the sharp tang of whiskey jolts her fully awake. This isn't Lila's room. She bolts upright, the silk blanket sliding to the floor, revealing her crumpled sequin dress from last night. Her heart pounds as her eyes scan the lavish room. An ebony desk, a black leather sofa, and a man. He's sitting in an armchair by the window, holding a coffee cup, his gaze as sharp as a blade. Grace freezes. What did she do last night? And who is this? "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Grace stammers, clutching her head, scrambling to recall anything. I didn't know I was in the wrong room. I was drunk. My friend made me drink. And I didn't mean to." Her words tumble out in a high-pitched rush, her face burning red like a ripe tomato. The man says nothing, only raising an eyebrow, his eyes seeming to assess her every frantic move. "I'll leave now." Grace scrambles off the bed, nearly tripping over the carpet's edge. She grabs her high heels, her trembling hands snatching her purse. "Thank you for, not calling security. I'm really, really sorry." Not daring to look back, she bolts for the door, her heels clattering on the wooden floor. Nathaniel Blake sets his coffee cup down, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. This girl, interesting. He still vividly recalls last night, her collapsing onto his bed, muttering about the worst pineapple cocktail ever before passing out. He'd meant to call hotel staff, but her innocent eyes and carefree smile and sleep stopped him. Instead, he tucked a blanket over her and slept on the sofa, a decision he himself couldn't quite fathom. Nathaniel stands, smoothing his suit jacket. She'll likely never know who he is, and he has no intention of finding out more. His life is complicated enough. 3 days later, Grace stands before the gleaming glass tower of Blake Corporation, her worn flats scuffing together nervously. She's passed 3 rounds of interviews, and today is her first day as a secretary in the administrative department. It's her biggest opportunity since graduating. A stable job, good pay, and most importantly, a chance to prove herself. But she's still uneasy. That humiliating night at the hotel haunts her. If anyone finds out, she'll die of shame. It's fine, Grace, she reassures herself, taking a deep breath. It was just a mix-up. That guy's probably forgotten it. She pushes through the glass doors into the main lobby, where chandeliers sparkle like an artificial starry sky. Her supervisor, Anna, a middle-aged woman with a friendly smile, greets her. Hi, Grace. Today you'll meet the big boss. Mr. Blake wants to personally assign tasks to the new secretary. Grace nods, forcing a smile. The CEO? Probably a stern old man obsessed with meetings and paperwork. But when the boardroom door opens, Grace feels the floor drop out from under her. The man at the head of the table, with neatly combed dark hair and eyes sharp as knives, is the same man from the presidential suite, Nathaniel Blake, Chief Executive Officer of Blake Corporation. She wants to scream, but her throat is dry. This can't be real. Miss Carson, Nathaniel says, his voice low and calm, as if they've never met. Today you'll start by organizing my meeting schedule and preparing the quarterly report. He slides a stack of documents toward her, his gaze briefly flickering over her paling face. Grace nods mechanically, her hands trembling as she takes the files. Her mind is a storm. He knows me. He definitely knows. What if he thinks I was trying to cause trouble? I'll be fired on my first day. She keeps her head down, avoiding his eyes, muttering, Yes, sir, I'll get to it. Nathaniel watches her, a spark of curiosity in his eyes. He recognized her the moment she walked in, the way she fumbles with her hair, the mix of panic and determination in her eyes. It's exactly like that night. He doesn't know why he hasn't mentioned the incident. Maybe he wants to see how she'll react. Or maybe he doesn't want her to slip out of his sight. The following days, Grace lives on edge. Every time Nathaniel calls her into his office, she braces for the words, "You're fired." But he never mentions the hotel. Instead, he assigns her minor tasks, scheduling meetings, preparing coffee, checking emails. Tasks that, according to Anna, are usually handled by his main assistant, James. Mr. Blake's acting weird, James, a tall guy with a playful grin, whispers to Grace during lunch. He normally doesn't care about new secretaries, but with you, it's like he's keeping you in his sights. Grace blushes, shaking her head vigorously. No way. He's probably just checking if I'm doing my job right. But her heart races. Nathaniel isn't just cold. He's enigmatic. Once, she accidentally spilled coffee on his desk, and instead of scolding her, he silently wiped it up, his eyes holding an unreadable glint. In his private office, Nathaniel isn't faring much better. Every time Grace appears, he feels an inexplicable stir. She's nothing like Vanessa, who broke his heart. Grace is clumsy, sincere, and has a warmth he can't ignore. But he reminds himself no emotions. He's opened his heart before, and the cost was a scar that never healed. Yet he can't stop giving her tasks. Miss Carson, review this report, he says, sliding a thick stack of documents her way. Grace nods, her eyes bright with determination. He pretends to focus on his computer, but his gaze secretly follows her. The way she bites her lip when concentrating, the way she mutters self-reproach for a typo. One late afternoon, Grace stays behind to finish a report. The floor is empty except for her and Nathaniel. She knocks on his office door, holding the freshly printed documents. Sir, the report's done. Can I leave it here? Nathaniel looks up, his gaze softening slightly. You finished earlier than I expected. Good work. He stands, stepping closer to take the files. They're only a few feet apart, and Grace suddenly realizes he's taller than she thought, his cologne faintly reminiscent of that night. Thank you for not bringing up, the hotel thing, Grace blurts out, mustering all her courage, her face flaming. She bites her lip, regretting it instantly. Nathaniel pauses, his eyes sweeping over her. It's not worth mentioning, he says, his voice low but not cold. You're doing your job well, Carson. That's what matters. Grace nods, her heart pounding. As she turns to leave, she misses the faint smile on Nathaniel's lips, a rare one, like sunlight slipping through a curtain's gap. He doesn't know why he wants to keep her close, but for the first time in years, he feels his heart stir. Grace Carson steps into Blake Corporation's office each morning with renewed determination. Though she occasionally spills coffee or accidentally sends emails to the entire department, her sincerity always earns her colleagues' forgiveness. That girl's got heart, Anna once told James, Nathaniel's assistant, after seeing Grace stay late to fix a misformatted report. What Grace doesn't know is that Nathaniel Blake's piercing eyes from his glass-walled office on the top floor often quietly follow her. Today, a light rain falls and Grace nearly arrives late after her umbrella flips inside out in the wind. She rushes into the lobby, hair soaked, her scarf dangling haphazardly over her shoulder like a forgotten ribbon. As she steps into the elevator, Nathaniel is already there, holding a stack of documents, his usual cold demeanor intact. Grace startles, quickly bowing. Good morning, Mr. Blake." Nathaniel glances at her, his gaze lingering on the crooked scarf. "You should tie it properly," he says, his voice low. Before Grace can react, he leans down, adjusting the scarf with swift, gentle precision. The warmth of his fingers brushing her neck makes Grace blush, her heart pounding. Thank you," she stammers, not daring to look up. The elevator doors open and Nathaniel strides out, leaving Grace frozen in place. She touches the scarf, wondering if she imagined it. Nathaniel Blake, the man the company calls the walking iceberg, just fixed her scarf. Lila would never believe this. In the days that follow, Grace settles into the rhythm of work. She learns to schedule meetings without overlaps, notes Nathaniel's strict preferences, like coffee at exactly 70 degrees Celsius, and even starts picking up on his subtle cues. Every morning, when she places his coffee on his desk and says, "Have a great day," Nathaniel never responds. But his eyes, even if only for a moment, linger on her smile, as if he's waiting for it. One late evening, Grace stays behind to finish a financial report. The floor is deserted, save for the light spilling from Nathaniel's office. She knocks, holding the documents. "Sir, the quarterly report is done." But as she steps inside, she freezes. Nathaniel is slumped in his chair, eyes closed, sweat beading on his forehead. An empty cold medicine bottle rolls on his desk. Are you okay?" Grace asks, stepping closer, concern overriding her nerves. Nathaniel opens his eyes, his gaze weary but still trying to maintain its usual frost. "It's nothing. Leave the documents and go home." Grace hesitates. She can tell he's hiding his illness. Her mother always said, "The stronger the man, the worse he is at taking care of himself." Without overthinking, she heads home, raids her fridge, and cooks a steaming pot of chicken soup. 2 hours later, she returns to the office, clutching a thermal container, ignoring the now heavier rain. Nathaniel frowns as she re-enters, her hair wet and coat dripping. "Miss Carson, I told you to go home." "You're sick," Grace says, her voice firm despite her racing heart. "I made chicken soup. My mom says it's great for colds." She sets the container on his desk, opening it to let the warm, savory aroma fill the air. Nathaniel stares at her, his expression wavering between irritation and surprise. "I don't need it," he says, but his tone lacks conviction. Grace doesn't back down, nudging the container closer. "Just one spoonful. Otherwise, I'll stand here all night." Nathaniel sighs, picking up the spoon as if coerced. But as the first sip touches his lips, he pauses. The warm, hearty flavor reminds him of rare days when his mother cooked before she passed away. He takes another spoonful, then another, his gaze softening. Grace smiles, relieved. "See? Not so hard." "Is this how you always are?" Nathaniel asks suddenly, his voice low. "Worrying about others even when they don't ask for it?" Grace blushes, scratching her head. "I just thought you needed something warm. You work too much." She doesn't realize her candid words have touched a small corner of Nathaniel's heart, a place he thought had long frozen over. While Grace carries on obliviously, Nathaniel grapples with an internal battle. He starts noticing small details about her, The way she chews her pen when focused, the way she hums softly when she thinks no one's listening, or how she always carries mints to share with colleagues. These things unsettle him. He doesn't want to be drawn in, doesn't want to open his heart, but every time Grace appears, he instinctively finds ways to keep her around longer. "Carson, double-check the contract with the Japanese partners," he says one Friday afternoon, though James had already reviewed it twice. Grace nods, unsuspecting, and stays late into the night. Nathaniel sits in his office, pretending to read, but his eyes keep drifting to the glass door, where Grace types diligently. He tells himself it's just curiosity. Deep down, he knows he's lying to himself. Lila, Grace's best friend, seizes every chance to tease her. One evening, as the two sit in their favorite cafe, Lila sips her latte and says, "I bet your boss isn't as cold as you think. Who pays that much attention to a newbie secretary?" "I smell romantic drama." Grace laughs, shaking her head. "You've watched too many rom-coms. Mr. Blake's just strict. Besides, I just want to do my job well and stay out of trouble." But Lila won't let it go. "Just wait. I bet you'll melt that iceberg." Meanwhile, James, Nathaniel's assistant, also notices odd signs. One day, when Nathaniel asks him to hand Grace a report instead of emailing it, James smirks. "Boss, if you want to talk to Miss Carson, just tell me to set up a meeting. No need for all this." Nathaniel glares. "What nonsense are you spouting? Get back to work." But James just chuckles, walking off, leaving Nathaniel with his tangled thoughts. He doesn't want to admit it, but Grace's presence is becoming an indispensable part of his day. One morning, when Grace enters the office with a radiant smile, Nathaniel feels his heart stir. She's wearing a cream sweater, her hair tied high, her eyes sparkling as she greets him. "Have a great day." Nathaniel nods, but this time he responds, his voice low. "You too, Carson." Grace is stunned, nearly dropping his coffee. Nathaniel Blake just answered her? She turns away, hiding a smile, unaware that Nathaniel is watching her, his eyes holding a rare warmth. The distance between them, though still filled with barriers, is slowly being bridged by small, sincere moments. In the days that follow, Nathaniel continues accidentally assigning Grace more tasks, and she responds with diligence and smiles. They haven't said it aloud, but an invisible thread is forming, pulling them closer bit by bit. In Nathaniel's heart, the icy barrier begins to crack, and he's unsure if he's brave enough to face what's coming. The rain patters softly against the glass tower of Blake Corporation, creating a hazy, ethereal veil. Grace Carson sits in the break room, cradling a mug of hot tea, listening to the lively chatter of her colleagues. She usually avoids office gossip, but today, the name Nathaniel Blake stops her cold. Two accountants, Sarah and Jessica, are whispering in the corner, their voices a mix of curiosity and drama. "You heard about Mr. Blake's past, right?" Sarah lowers her voice, eyes gleaming. "He was this close to getting married. His fiancée, Vanessa, was drop-dead gorgeous, but she ditched him days before the wedding. Rumor has it she ran off with some French billionaire, way richer than him." Jessica gasps softly. "No way. It's hard to believe. He's so cold now, but to think he was head over heels once? That must have wrecked him. No wonder he doesn't date anymore." Grace bows her head, pretending to focus on her tea, but her heart races. Nathaniel Blake, the man who keeps the world at arm's length, was betrayed? She imagines him standing alone in a tuxedo, waiting for someone who never came. A pang of pain tightens her chest. She knows what it's like to feel left behind, not in love, but in those moments when she felt she wasn't good enough, not enough for anyone to stay. She glances up, her eyes drifting toward Nathaniel's office. Through the glass, he's bent over documents, his face as impassive as ever. But now Grace sees him differently. Beneath that icy exterior is a Nathaniel she never knew, a man who loved, hoped, and was broken. From that day on, Grace begins to notice Nathaniel more, but not with the curiosity of a starry-eyed girl. She wants to understand him, not to invade his life, but to be a quiet companion. She doesn't push him to laugh or try to cheer him up, as Lila once suggested. Instead, she chooses small gestures, leaving a cup of ginger tea on his desk on chilly days, fixing typos in his reports with a smile, or simply listening when he assigns tasks in his steady, low voice. One late evening, with the office empty, Grace stays to help Nathaniel prepare for a critical meeting with Korean partners. Fluorescent lights illuminate a desk buried in documents, and Nathaniel, though still impeccably composed, has a trace of exhaustion in his eyes. Grace sits across from him, diligently taking notes, occasionally glancing up to ensure he's okay. "You don't need to stay," Nathaniel says suddenly, his voice slightly hoarse. "It's late." Grace smiles, shaking her head. "It's fine, sir. I want to make sure everything's perfect for tomorrow's meeting. You always say details are everything, right?" She winks, hoping to lighten the mood. Nathaniel looks at her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Then, as if caught in an unguarded moment, he blurts out, "My mother used to say that. She'd check every cookie before bringing them to a party, even if it was just my backyard birthday." Grace looks up, startled. Nathaniel just shared something personal? She keeps her tone casual, not wanting him to retreat. "She sounds very thorough. Your birthdays must have been fun, huh?" Nathaniel pauses, as if realizing he's exposed a piece of his past. He turns away, gazing at the dark window. "They were ordinary, just some balloons and a burnt cake. But I miss those days." His voice drops, carrying an indescribable sadness. Grace doesn't press. She nods, offering a gentle smile. "Sounds cozy. I always ruin birthday cakes. Once I dumped a whole jar of sugar into the batter, and my family was sick of sweets for days." She laughs, hoping her silly story will pull him from his melancholy. Nathaniel glances at her, the corner of his mouth twitching into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "You're a disaster in the kitchen," he says, but his tone lacks its usual frost. Grace laughs loudly, feeling like she's cracked a thin layer of ice. But as she leaves the office that night, Nathaniel stays behind, gripping his pen tightly. He doesn't want to remember his mother or the happy days Vanessa erased with her betrayal. Sharing even a small memory with Grace scares him. He's built a wall around his heart. So how does this girl slip through so easily? In the days that follow, Grace continues to be a quiet presence in Nathaniel's life, never loud or demanding. She leaves a cookie on his desk with a note saying, "Have a great day." She straightens his crooked tie before a meeting, her eyes bright but ascended to heaven, but never crossing boundaries. Each gesture is gentle, like water wearing down stone, and Nathaniel, though reluctant to admit it, begins to feel that warmth. One afternoon, as Grace brings documents to his office, she accidentally drops a stack of papers. Nathaniel bends to help, and when their hands brush, both freeze. Their eyes meet for a fleeting moment, and Grace sees a struggle in his gaze, between a desire to connect and a fear of being hurt. She smiles, standing up, pretending nothing happened. "Thanks, I'm such a klutz." Nathaniel doesn't respond, but as she leaves, he watches her, his heart heavy. He wonders if he's stepping onto a dangerous path where his heart could break again. Yet he can't deny it. Grace's presence makes him want to try, even just a little, to trust again. Lila, during a weekend coffee date, notices a change in Grace's tone when she mentions Nathaniel. "You like him, don't you?" Lila asks, eyes gleaming. Grace blushes, shaking her head. "It's not like that. He seems lonely. I want to help. Like a friend." Lila raises an eyebrow. "Friend? You make him soup, stay late with him, and now you're talking about his ex-fiancée? Grace, that's not friend. That's the start of a romance novel." Grace laughs, but deep down she knows Lila isn't entirely wrong. She doesn't dream of a love story with Nathaniel. He's too distant, too guarded, but she can't stop caring, can't stop hoping that one day he'll smile more. Not just for her, but for the world. Meanwhile, Nathaniel sits in his office, staring at the cookie Grace left. He picks it up, takes a bite, and the sweetness spreads. He thinks of Vanessa, who called him too rigid, unworthy of love. Then he thinks of Grace, who asked for nothing but that he eat soup or smile. For the first time in years, Nathaniel feels he could be a better version of himself, if he dares. But he also knows every step closer to Grace is a step away from his safe walls. And that terrifies him more than anything. A sudden blizzard sweeps in, turning the roads leading out of the small Vermont town into a sea of white. Nathaniel Blake grips the steering wheel, his sharp eyes scanning the thick curtain of snow. Beside him, Grace Carson clutches her wool coat, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid air of the SUV. This business trip, meant to be a brief meeting with a local partner, has become an unforeseen challenge. "No flights tonight, that's certain," Nathaniel says, his low voice tinged with frustration. "And the highway's closed. We need to find somewhere to stay." Grace nods, hiding her anxiety. She's not used to situations like this, stranded in an unfamiliar town with the boss she both respects and feels flustered around. "I saw a sign for an inn a few miles back," she says softly. "Maybe they have rooms." Nathaniel glances at her, his gaze softening briefly. "Good. We'll stay the night and leave in the morning." He doesn't say it, but Grace's presence, though it unsettles him in an inexplicable way, also brings a strange sense of reassurance. The Maple Inn is a cozy wooden building with a crackling fireplace in the lobby and the faint scent of ginger cookies. The owner, an elderly woman named Martha, smiles apologetically when Nathaniel asks about rooms. "I'm afraid we only have one room left, what with this storm. A double bed, but spacious. Can you two share?" Grace's face flushes, her heart pounding. Nathaniel, his expression unchanged, nods. "Fine, we'll take it." He turns to Grace, his tone calm. "You okay with that, Carson?" "Yes, fine," Grace replies, though her mind is a whirlwind. Share a room with Nathaniel Blake? The thought is both thrilling and terrifying, but she has no choice. And a small part of her, the part she tries to ignore, feels her pulse quicken. The room is small but warm, with a double bed covered in a checkered wool blanket, a worn armchair, and a window overlooking the snowy void. Nathaniel shrugs off his coat, hanging it neatly, then turns to Grace. "You take the bed, I'll sleep in the chair." Grace shakes her head, her hair spilling over her shoulders as her clip loosens. "No way, you're the boss. I'll take the chair. Besides, it's too small. You'll hurt your back." She smiles, trying to ease the tension. Nathaniel frowns, about to argue, but then sighs. "We'll figure it out later. I need to check emails." He sits in the chair, opening his laptop, but his eyes keep drifting to Grace, who's rummaging through her suitcase for pajamas. The evening passes in awkward silence, broken only by the howling wind outside and the faint crackle of the lobby fireplace echoing upstairs. Grace, after showering and changing into panda-printed pajamas, sits cross-legged on the bed, scrolling through her phone. Nathaniel, still in his white dress shirt with rolled-up sleeves, tries to focus on his laptop, but his mind wanders. Her silly pajamas, her carefree smile as she reads texts from Lila, it all draws his gaze. "Aren't you cold?" Nathaniel asks suddenly, breaking the silence. Grace looks up, surprised. "A bit, but I'm okay. This inn's warmer than I expected." Nathaniel stands, grabbing a spare blanket from the closet and tossing it to her. "Put it on. I don't need my secretary catching a cold." His tone is curt, but the gesture is gentle. Grace smiles, pulling the blanket over herself. "Thanks. You should rest, too. You've been working all day." He doesn't reply, but his gaze lingers on her longer than usual. Then, as if to break the moment, he steps onto the small balcony to check the weather. In his haste to close the door, he jams his hand in the frame, pain shooting through his left wrist. "Damn it," he mutters, clutching it. Grace jumps up instantly. "What's wrong? Let me see." She rushes over, grabbing his hand, her eyes filled with worry. Nathaniel starts to pull away, but the sincerity in her voice stops him. "It's just a sprain," he says stiffly. "I'll bandage it," Grace insists, digging through her purse for the medical tape she always carries due to her clumsiness. She sits beside him on the chair, carefully wrapping his wrist. Their heads are close enough for Nathaniel to catch the lavender scent of her shampoo. He stays silent, letting her tend to him, though the pain is minor. "Done," Grace says, looking up, and realizes they're so close she can trace the sharp lines of his face. Their eyes meet, and time seems to freeze. Nathaniel, as if pulled by an invisible force, leans closer. "You're always like this, aren't you?" he whispers, "worrying about people, even when they don't deserve it." Grace blushes but doesn't pull back. "You deserve it," she says, her voice soft but firm. Everyone deserves to be cared for. Her simple, heartfelt words shatter the last wall in Nathaniel's heart. He leans down, his lips meeting hers, gentle but intense. Grace freezes for a second, then kisses him back, her hands instinctively gripping his shirt. The kiss deepens, as if they're pouring out every suppressed emotion. Nathaniel pulls her into his arms, her warmth melting the ice within him. That night, in the small inn room amid the blizzard, they cross the line between boss and employee. Nathaniel is gentle, careful, realizing it's Grace's first time. He whispers an apology for not giving her a more perfect moment, but Grace just smiles, pulling him closer. I don't need perfect, she says. I just need you. At dawn, faint sunlight pierces the snowy haze, illuminating them lying together under the wool blanket. Grace wakes first, her face still flushed from the night before. She looks at Nathaniel, sleeping peacefully with a rare calm, and feels a mix of joy and shyness. She hopes last night wasn't just an impulse, but the start of something deeper. But when Nathaniel wakes, his eyes carry a struggle. He looks at Grace, his heart aching. She's too pure, too good, and he, a man scarred by his past, might not be worthy. Carson, he says, his voice hoarse. Last night, I shouldn't have let it happen. Grace sits up, her heart tightening. Do you regret it? She asks, trying to keep her voice steady, though her eyes betray her hurt. Nathaniel shakes his head, his hand clenching. It's not regret, but you deserve someone better. Someone not haunted by their past. He looks away, unable to meet her gaze. Grace takes a deep breath, standing and grabbing his hand. You don't get to decide for me, Nathaniel. I choose you, with everything you are. Her voice trembles, but it's resolute. Don't push me away just because you're scared. Nathaniel looks at her, his eyes wavering. He wants to believe her, to hold on to this moment, but the fear of betrayal surges. He says nothing, only nods, and they begin preparing to leave the inn as the roads clear. On the drive back, the air between them is heavy. Grace tries to keep smiling, but her heart is a storm of emotions. She doesn't regret last night, but Nathaniel's words make her wonder if he'll ever truly open up. Nathaniel, gripping the wheel, wrestles with himself. He knows he loves Grace, but that love comes with a fear he's not ready to face. The blizzard has passed, but another storm brews in their hearts, and neither knows whether it will tear them apart or bind them closer. Late winter in New York is bitterly cold, with icy winds sweeping through the bustling streets as if trying to steal the last traces of warmth. Grace Carson steps into Blake Corporation's office with dark circles under her eyes, her heart heavy. A month has passed since that fateful night at the Maple Inn, where she and Nathaniel Blake crossed a line, leaving her with a memory both sweet and painful. But since then, Nathaniel has grown more distant than ever. He still assigns tasks, still calls her into his office with his steady, low voice, but the warmth in his eyes is gone. He keeps her at arm's length, as if that night never happened. Grace tries to convince herself he just needs time, but every time she smiles or leaves a coffee on his desk, Nathaniel only nods, offering no response. His words from the inn, "You deserve someone better," echo in her mind, a reminder that she doesn't belong in his world. And this morning, a new secret sends her into panic. She's pregnant. She discovered it in the bathroom of her small apartment when the test showed 2 clear lines. Her hands trembled, tears streaming down her face. This should have been a joyful moment, but with Nathaniel's indifference and the growing distance between them, she feels only fear. She doesn't know how to tell him, not when he seems to have rebuilt the icy wall around his heart. That day, Grace arrives at the office in turmoil. She brings a stack of documents to Nathaniel's office, hoping a brief moment might rekindle some connection. But as she opens the door, she freezes. A woman stands before his desk, her golden hair shimmering, her red dress clinging to a perfect figure. She smiles, her voice sweet as honey. "Nat, I know I was wrong, but I came back for you. We can start over." Vanessa, Nathaniel's former fiancée, who left him before their wedding for a billionaire. Grace feels her heart shatter as Vanessa steps forward, wrapping her arms around Nathaniel. "I missed you," she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. Nathaniel stands still, his expression unreadable, but he doesn't push her away immediately. That moment for Grace stretches into an eternity. She sets the documents on the desk with a soft clack, turns and bolts from the room. Nathaniel calls after her, "Carson!" But she doesn't stop. The image of Vanessa in his arms is a knife, tearing through the fragile hope she'd clung to. He still loves her, doesn't he? Everything they shared, the chicken soup, the kiss, the night at the inn, was just a mistake. And the baby in her womb. How can she face Nathaniel when he clearly doesn't want her in his life? In the break room, Grace sits dazed, clutching a cold glass of water. Lila on the phone tries to comfort her. You don't know the whole story. It could be a misunderstanding." But Grace shakes her head, tears falling. "You didn't see his eyes, Lila. He didn't push her away. And for a month, he's treated me like a stranger. I think I don't belong here." Back at her apartment, Grace stares at the pregnancy test on the table, her heart torn. Part of her wants to stay, to tell Nathaniel about the baby, to believe he'll change. But the larger part, the part wounded by his coldness, by his claim that he's unworthy, and by the sight of Vanessa embracing him, whispers that leaving is the right choice. She doesn't want to force Nathaniel into a responsibility he doesn't want, and she can't bear to stay, watching him return to his ex. With trembling hands, Grace opens her laptop and drafts a resignation letter. She types each word, every letter like a cut to her heart. "Dear HR Department, I hereby submit my resignation from Blake Corporation, effective in 1 week." She sends the email, shuts the laptop, and buries her face in her hands, sobbing. She'll leave New York, return to her hometown in Ohio, where she can start over, raising the baby alone. Nathaniel will never know about their child, and perhaps that's for the best. In his office, Nathaniel clenches his fists, his eyes blazing with anger. Vanessa still stands there, trying to maintain her seductive smile, but he's no longer the man who loved her blindly. "You think I'd forgive you?" he snaps. "You left me for money, Vanessa, and now you're back for what? Because that guy's no longer useful?" Vanessa pales but tries to speak. "Nat, I realized I love you. We can... Get out." Nathaniel cuts her off, his voice icy. "And don't ever show your face again." He points to the door, his gaze unwavering. Vanessa, realizing she has no chance, turns and leaves, leaving behind a tense, silent room. Nathaniel sits, rubbing his temples. Vanessa's sudden embrace caught him off guard, and Grace's pained expression as she fled haunts him. For the past month, he's kept his distance from Grace, not because he doesn't love her, but because he's afraid he'll hurt her, as Vanessa hurt him. But now he realizes his silence has pushed Grace away. He opens his phone, about to text her, but hesitates. He doesn't know what to say to fix this mistake. All he knows is that he loves her, a love fiercer than anything he's ever felt. But when James enters at the end of the day, carrying an email from HR, Nathaniel's world collapses. "Grace submitted her resignation," James says, his voice worried. "She wants to leave in a week. Boss, what's going on?" Nathaniel reads the email, his hands shaking. "She's quitting?" he mutters, his heart constricting. He leaps up, grabbing his coat, but James stops him. "Boss, she's not at the office anymore. I checked. She left at noon." Nathaniel races out of the building, heedless of the freezing rain. He calls Grace, but she doesn't answer. He goes to her apartment, pounding on the door, but no one responds. The rain soaks his coat, but he doesn't care. He's lost her, and the thought chokes him. He doesn't know about the baby, doesn't know the pain Grace is enduring. All he knows is he has to find her before she disappears from his life forever. Grace sits on her sofa, her suitcase packed. She looks at a photo of her and Lila on the table, tears streaming down. She doesn't want to leave New York, doesn't want to abandon her memories with Nathaniel, but she can't stay, not when her heart is broken and her baby needs a future free from what can never be. She'll take the morning bus, leave the city, and Nathaniel will never know the truth. Are you still following the story? If you were Grace, would you have acted like she did? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our heartwarming stories. Rain pours over New York like a gray curtain, turning the streets into rivers. Nathaniel Blake races through the crowd, his coat soaked, hair plastered to his forehead, but he doesn't care. It's been 3 days since he received the email announcing Grace Carson's resignation. 3 days of living in a nightmare. He's called her dozens of times, gone to her apartment repeatedly, but she's vanished. No explanation, no trace. Only a gnawing pain in his chest. The realization that he might have lost her forever. Nathaniel isn't one to panic. As CEO of Blake Corporation, he's always in control. But Grace, the clumsy girl with the warm smile, has turned his world upside down. He pushed her away out of fear of being hurt, and now with her gone, he realizes how deeply he loves her. He can't let her disappear, not when his heart beats only for her. His desperate search begins. He questions James, checks every address tied to her in HR records, even contacts Lila, Grace's best friend. Lila, after some hesitation, reveals that Grace might have left New York for Ohio, her hometown. "She's really hurt, Mr. Blake," Lila says over the phone, her voice laced with reproach. "If you truly care, find her before it's too late." Nathaniel doesn't hesitate. He books a flight to Columbus, Ohio, and rents a car to drive to Granville, the small town where Grace went to college. Rain falls relentlessly, as if the sky is weeping for him. He drives through places familiar to Grace, her old dorm, the library where she studied, and finally a small cafe called Brood Awakening, where she worked as a student. Lila mentioned Grace loved this place, returning whenever she needed comfort. The cafe is warm, filled with the aroma of roasted coffee and waffles. Grace sits in her usual corner by the window, clutching a cold latte. She wears a gray sweater, her hair tied low, her eyes red from crying. Her suitcase rests at her feet, a bus ticket to her hometown tucked in her coat pocket. She left New York this morning, telling only Lila. She wants to start over, to raise her baby alone, far from Nathaniel and the pain he's caused. But sitting here in this familiar space, she can't stop thinking of him. His rare, gentle gaze, his fleeting smile, and the night at the inn that changed her life. She touches her stomach, where a tiny life grows. She hasn't told Nathaniel, afraid he'd stay out of duty, not love. The image of Vanessa embracing him, coupled with his month-long indifference, convinced her leaving was right. But her heart aches, yearning for a miracle where he'd appear and say he needs her. The cafe's doorbell jingles, snapping Grace from her thoughts. She looks up, and her heart stops. Nathaniel stands there, drenched from head to toe, his eyes frantically scanning the room. When he sees her, time freezes. "Grace," he whispers, his voice hoarse, stepping closer. Grace is stunned, her grip tightening on the latte. How are you here?" She stands, her voice trembling. "How did you know where I was?" Nathaniel approaches, ignoring the curious stares from other patrons. "I looked for you everywhere," he says, his voice raw with emotion. "New York, your apartment, every place I thought you might be." "I can't let you go, Grace. Not like this." Grace steps back, tears spilling. "You don't have to do this. I saw you with Vanessa. I know you still love her, and you said you weren't worthy of me. For a month, you treated me like a stranger. I can't stay, Nathaniel." Nathaniel shakes his head, closing the distance despite her retreat. "You're wrong," he says, his voice pained. "Vanessa means nothing to me. She hugged me, but I sent her away. I don't love her. Haven't since she betrayed me. The one I love is you, Grace. You stumbled into my room, into my world, and now I can't let you leave." His words hit Grace like a tidal wave, crashing into her heart. She covers her face, sobbing. "But you pushed me away. You made me think I didn't matter. I didn't know what you felt, and I couldn't take it anymore." Nathaniel kneels before her, heedless of the wet floor and the shocked gazes around them. He takes her hands, his eyes resolute. "I was scared, Grace. Scared I'd hurt you like I was hurt. But I was wrong. You changed me, made me want to live again, to love again. I'm not promising perfection, but I promise to spend my life making you happy. Please don't go." Grace looks at him, her heart torn. She wants to believe him, to fall into his arms, but the pain holds her back. Then, as if she can't hold it in any longer, she blurts out, "I'm pregnant, Nathaniel. Your child. I was going to leave because I thought you didn't want us." Nathaniel freezes, his eyes widening. "Pregnant?" he repeats, his voice shaking. Then, as if every piece falls into place, he pulls her into his arms, holding her tightly despite her feeble push. "God, Grace, why didn't you tell me? I want you. I want our child. I won't let you go. Ever." Grace sobs in his embrace, a mix of pain and joy. "But what if you change your mind? What if you get scared and push me away again?" she whispers, her voice breaking. Nathaniel kisses her forehead, rain mingling with tears. "I swear, Grace, I'll be with you and our child, no matter what. You're my home." He holds her tightly, as if afraid she'll vanish. The cafe falls silent, save for the sound of rain and Grace's soft sobs. Patrons smile, some wiping tears. Grace, though still hurting, feels her heart warm. She doesn't know what the future holds, but in this moment, she chooses to trust him. They leave the cafe, Nathaniel holding Grace's hand, leading her to the car. The rain still falls, but it's no longer cold. He opens the car door, draping his coat over her shoulders. "We're going back to New York," he says gently. "Together, and we'll do this right." Grace nods, her hand resting on her stomach. She's still afraid, but Nathaniel's steadfast gaze gives her hope. They found each other in the storm, and now they'll build a future together, for themselves and the child to come. The rain has stopped in Granville, Ohio, leaving a clear sky dotted with twinkling stars. In the SUV parked outside Brood Awakening, Grace Carson sits beside Nathaniel Blake, her hands still trembling after his emotional confession. She looks at him, the man once cold as ice, now drenched and with eyes full of longing. "I want to believe you, Nathaniel," she says, her voice soft but firm. "But I need time, and I need you to prove you won't push me away again." Nathaniel nods, grasping her hand, his warmth seeping through her cold skin. "I'll do everything to make you trust me," he says. "I promise, Grace, not just for our child, but because I love you." He pauses, his gaze tender. "We'll take it one step at a time, okay?" Grace smiles, though her heart still bears scars. She sets boundaries. No rushing, no pressure, and he must be more open about his feelings. Nathaniel agrees, and they return to New York together, carrying a fragile but fierce hope. Grace doesn't discard her bus ticket, keeping it in her pocket as a reminder that she has the power to choose her own happiness. A year later, the Waldorf Astoria in Manhattan glows with lights and laughter. The gala celebrating Blake Corporation's 20th anniversary is a grand affair, with sparkling champagne and a string quartet playing Clair de Lune. Grace, now Nathaniel's executive assistant, stands confidently among the crowd in an emerald evening gown. She's transformed, no longer the clumsy girl who spilled coffee, but a strong woman who knows her worth. Nathaniel, in a black tuxedo, can't take his eyes off her, his gaze filled with pride and love. Over the past year, Nathaniel has kept his promise. He's learned to share, telling Grace stories of his childhood, his mother, and the fears that once held him captive. He's taken her to cozy diners, held her hand through Central Park, and reminded her daily that she's the center of his world. When Grace went into labor 2 months ago, Nathaniel stayed by her side for 12 hours, holding her hand and whispering comfort. Their daughter Lily was born with eyes just like his, and in that moment, Nathaniel knew he'd found his family. At the gala, as Nathaniel's speech begins, all eyes turn to him. He stands on the stage, his voice warm and steady. Blake Corporation isn't just a company, it's a family. And tonight, I want to thank the person who taught me that. He looks directly at Grace, his eyes shining. "Carson, will you come up here?" Grace is stunned, her face flushing as the crowd applauds. She steps onto the stage, trying to stay composed despite her racing heart. "What are you doing?" she whispers, raising an eyebrow. Nathaniel only smiles, then, to the astonishment of hundreds of employees, he kneels, pulling a red velvet box from his pocket. Inside is a simple, elegant diamond ring. "Grace Carson," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "You came into my life like a storm, turning everything upside down. You taught me how to love, how to trust, how to live. I don't promise you the world, but I promise to spend my life loving and protecting you and Lily. Will you marry me? The crowd cheers, some wiping tears. Grace, now more confident than ever, crosses her arms, pretending to ponder. Let's see. You made me work overtime, spilled coffee on reports, and had me fix your crooked ties. Should I say yes? She winks and the room erupts in laughter. Nathaniel laughs, a rare, radiant smile. I'll fix your ties every day if that's what you want. He stands, pulling her close, whispering, Say yes, Carson, or I'll kneel all night. Grace laughs, tears glistening. All right, Nathaniel Blake. Yes. She extends her hand, and he slides the ring onto her finger amid thunderous applause. He kisses her, a kiss both sweet and fierce, as if the world holds only them. Grace wraps her arms around him, feeling his familiar warmth, knowing she's found where she belongs. One spring morning, sunlight filters through the windows of Nathaniel's Upper East Side penthouse. Grace sits in an armchair, rocking Lily in her lap, softly singing a lullaby. The baby, with Nathaniel's dark hair and Grace's smile, babbles, melting her heart. Nathaniel enters from the kitchen, holding 2 coffee mugs, smiling at the 2 most important people in his life. You sing better than I thought, he teases, sitting beside her. Grace raises an eyebrow. And you make worse coffee than I expected. Next time, I'm doing it. Nathaniel laughs, pulling her close, careful not to disturb Lily. He kisses her forehead, his eyes full of love. Thank you, Grace, for everything. Grace leans into him, feeling his steady heartbeat. Thank you for not kicking me out of that hotel room, she says playfully. Nathaniel chuckles, holding her tighter. My best mistake. The penthouse fills with laughter and Lily's babbles. Outside, New York buzzes, but in this home, time slows. Grace and Nathaniel have weathered storms, from a drunken stumble into the wrong room to heart-wrenching misunderstandings, to find each other. They're not perfect, but they have each other, Lily, and a future brimming with hope. In a quiet moment, Grace gazes out the window, where sunlight glints off skyscrapers. She remembers the clumsy girl who got drunk and lost her way, and smiles. She's found not just love, but herself. Nathaniel, beside her, laces his fingers with hers, knowing he's learned to love again because of her. Together, they've built a family, not just with love, but with trust and the courage to face any challenge. Their story, sparked by a silly mistake, closes with an eternal promise that no matter what life brings, they'll